So I figured I'd tell you guys why my head is this shape and why I have so many mechanical parts in me. Here's Air's pup. She likes to sit with Daddy like all the time. She won't leave. She'll scratch the arm of the chair if I'm doing something else until I pick her up. She's a good dog. But it started in 2012, late 2012. And I was 29 years old then. I got a super high fever, like 104, 105. Don't mind this eyebrow, it doesn't raise because of the surgery. But yeah, it started that high. That's how it started, the super high fever. I lived with my parents at the time, and my mom convinced me to go to the hospital. So I did. And they didn't know what it was. They thought, I had some kind of infection. They took blood cultures, gave me fluids, IV fluids, and then they sent me home and said if it gets worse, come back. So it did get worse. It went up. My fever went up to like brain damage levels, scary levels. I had to be helped back to the hospital. And when I get there, they're like, "Oh, rush him back to the room, really quick, really quick." And apparently, the cultures came back positive, and I had a blood infection, which a blood infection alone can kill you. It can kill you. It can affect your organs and all that. And they said they called my phone once, and it went straight to voicemail, and they left me a voicemail, which I didn't even know where my phone was. I had like 106 fever. So I lived one block from that hospital, and they knew my address. I know it's not the protocol to walk down and tell anybody anything, but I mean, to save somebody's life, you'd think they would. But they didn't. So I get rushed in the room, IV antibiotics immediately. Doctors looking to see where this infection came from. And it turns out it was a bladder infection or something along those lines. I don't really remember that part. Urinary tract, I think. But everything's gonna be all right. I'm young. I'm really strong. Work for a moving company. I'm a bull. 6'1", 230 pounds. Lift heavy stuff all day, every day, running up steps. I'm strong. I can get by this. So they're like, well, we're gonna check everything, do tests to make sure. So they run some tests, and then they do an echocardiogram. And I remember my dad was joking around with me, laughing, and the specialist doing the echocardiogram was laughing too. And all of a sudden, they stopped laughing. And they're like, I'll be right back. And they get a doctor, and they go in the hallway and start whispering. And the doctor comes back in, and I was born with a bicuspid or tricuspid valve on my mitral, whichever is not normal. My mom has it too. And so my heart was infected. I had a staph infection in my heart. So they couldn't do anything at this little hospital by my house. So they took me to Bethlehem Hospital, which is a big hospital. And I talked to the doctors there, and it's eaten away my heart. It had already eaten away my heart. They gave me antibiotics, so most of it had been killed, but there was severe damage to my heart. They just didn't know how bad, so they're like, open heart is the only way to go. You have to do open heart surgery. So I'm like, all right. My girlfriend, or her friend with benefits at the time, Emily, was there to support me. My family was there. They take me back, and I'm pretty confident. And I'm like, I'll see you guys later. This isn't the end. I'll be back. So I go into surgery. It's a successful open heart surgery, they tell me. And then it's like 1 or 2 days later. I'm sitting there with Emily, and I think my parents were there. And the doctors come in, and the heart surgeon comes in, and he's like, I'm really sorry to tell you this, but the tests show that the heart surgery has failed. When I opened up your chest, it was just massive damage. The staff had eaten away a huge part of your heart, and I couldn't fix it. There's nothing. I did my best, but I just couldn't fix it. And so, that's when it starts to get really scary. So we're like, well, what do we do? And our heart surgeon's like, I know one of the best heart surgeons in the world. He works at the University of Penn, which is in Philadelphia, not far from me. So we're like, all right, no, that's it then. So they rushed me to Penn, and the surgeon's name is Dr. Wu. Great guy, awesome guy, but he doesn't have great bedside manner. We get there, and after he looks at it and see what the damage is, he's like, do you have a will or a power of attorney? I'm like, no. And he's like, well, you might want to take care of that. He's like, this is what we call a commando surgery. Oh, yeah, because it's a commando surgery because they put a mechanical valve in my mitral spot, which you need to be on blood thinners to have a mechanical valve. So I was taking blood thinners, but the fact that I was taking blood thinners, now that I'm going into another open heart surgery, they're afraid that I will bleed out on the operating table, and all the infection wasn't gone. So it's like a ticking time bomb. They have to, time it precisely to where they think the blood thinners are out of my system, but before that infection just completely destroys my heart. And he doesn't have time to plan this. Like heart surgeons plan their surgeries and what they're going to do. He doesn't have time for any of that. We wait like a day, and he's like, I'm not going to lie to you. This is 50-50 odds at best. My eye is going cross since brain surgery. Fuck. Anyway, and, so all my family is there, and, I hug them and tell them I love them. I tell them I'm going to make it, but I love you forever. If I don't see you again, I will always be with you. It's hard to even talk about, but they take me into surgery, and this time I'm not as confident, but I just try to, forget, just, power through. I'm gonna make it. So they take me in, they give me the first dose of anesthesia, and I'm out. That's the next thing I remember, is waking up in ICU, like strapped into bed, hooked up to morphine. I don't have any idea what's going on. The infection's still there, and they're worried that it's going to spread again, and I can't do another heart surgery. So um, it's just a waiting game and see if I make it. So the morphine was keeping me sane, keeping the pain down. I really didn't know what was going on. My brother and his wife were there a lot, and I appreciate that. Um, and eventually I just came out of it. I didn't really got the infection to go away with heavy doses of antibiotics. It finally is gone. And he put a bovine valve in the mitral spot. So it wasn't mechanical, so I didn't need to take blood thinners. But the downside was a mechanical valve lasts like 30 years. A bovine valve lasts like 7, 8, 9. So that's what it was. That's where we are. So I slowly get up to the point where I can walk. They do physical therapy with me, walking up and down short steps that they have, walking down hallways, how far I can go. And after a bit of that, they finally send me home. It wasn't that quick. It felt a lot longer than the way I'm explaining it, but that's what that was. And then, I recover at my parents' house, and like a month after surgery at home, I start to feel good. I can go walk around the block. I meet my friends at the bar. Not that I was drinking, but I met them all. They knew what I went through. Emily worked at the bar, so it was like a welcome home. Well, we're glad you didn't die party. And I felt great. And I was like, I'm going to look for another job. Found a job at a pharmaceutical company, but it just paid poorly and was pretty terrible work. So I quit. And I eventually called my boss back at the moving company. He's like, you sure you can do this? And I'm like, yeah, I'm strong. I just turned 30, but I felt great. So I work at the moving company, driving truck, moving, no problems. That goes on, for about 7 years. Then I start, losing my breath quicker, not having the energy and not having the wind to do the job anymore. So they put me in the warehouse, and it doesn't get better. It gets worse. It gets to the point where I have to take like 4 out of the 5 work days off. And, and I try to walk around the block, and I make it like 10 feet, and I feel like I'm going to suffocate. And I'm trying to put it in the back of my head, and it's stupid. And I was just hoping it would get better, trying to exercise and hoping I'd get my breath back. It was really stupid. My ankles were swollen as hell. In the back of my head, I knew I was in heart failure, but I didn't want to face it. I didn't even mention Kelly yet. I had met a new girlfriend, Kelly, online, and she was amazing. And we were together for, 3 or 4 years by this point. And, she's telling me I should probably get it checked out. So I finally go to my cardiologist, and he's like, you're in complete heart failure, which isn't as bad as it sounds sometimes, but with my complicated situation and crazy heart, it was as bad as it sounds. Sorry, Harris, I gotta move my legs. Sorry, baby. So they're like, you have a couple options. You can go to Philadelphia and see a doctor. I know Dr. Acker. He probably is the best heart surgeon in the world. He taught Dr. Wu, who did your second heart surgery that fixed you and saved you. He taught him at Penn for years, and he's the man. He's like, or there's this new non-invasive surgery where they go up through the vein in your leg and they put a new valve in, a mechanical valve. It's just a valve that opens and closes. They go up through your leg and they insert that. So I'm like, me and Kelly talk. I talked to that doctor in California. He's at Stanford. He thought I was a good candidate for it. We fly out there. I'm like losing my breath on the plane. Barely could make it on the plane. It's so bad. We rented an Airbnb right by Stanford. Rented a car. So we stay at the Airbnb a couple of days, and then it's surgery day, I'm confident. I talked to Dr. Wu because he was the head of cardiac surgery at this point at Stanford. That's part of the reason why I went there. And he's like, this should have a very good chance of going well, but I will be waiting. If anything happens, which it won't, but if anything happens, I'll be waiting to go in, invasive, crack your chest again and fix it and do what I can. So that made me feel better. But, so I go into that operation, go to sleep, wake up, everybody's happy. The doctor's showing me pictures. I don't know what they are. He's like, look how good this looks. So, complete success by all the doctors' standards. And I slowly start to get my breath back. It's definitely not as bad as it was. It wasn't a complete recovery, though. But I could do what I needed to. I could walk upstairs if I had to. I could walk around the block. So we decided to drive back from California, and it was a good drive back. It was good to see the country. As a mover, I'd seen 40-something states, but it was good to drive the whole way across the country from California to Pennsylvania. And Kelly did all the driving, which was amazing. She's incredible. She's my rock. I don't know what I'd do without her. So I get back home and I go to my cardiologist, and he's like, my bowel movements are like they're like green and dark colored and not normal, And he's like, well, what I think is happening based on your echo is that new valve is chewing up blood cells and it's making you iron deficient. So we're going to give you iron pills and then give you an iron infusion. And I'm like, okay, you can do that. So we set that up. And I don't know why I always do this, but I'm like a psychic with things that are going to go wrong. I told Kelly when we were sitting at the table, I was like, I think I have colon cancer. And she's like, why? And I was like, I don't know. I always think the worst. She's like, you don't have colon cancer. Stop saying that. And I'm like, all right, yeah, you're right. So a couple days later, I go to the bathroom. And luckily Kelly was there. And I just start, gushing pure blood into the toilet when I was sitting down. Gushing, like losing a ton of blood. So we rushed to the hospital. They get me in quickly because my situation is crazy. I go into a room. They have to bring in one of those portable toilets because I have to, I keep pouring blood out of me. And they get me into a real room. Well, they get me into a real room. Well, I'm telling this story out of order. Before I started gushing blood, my stomach after the operation. No, I'm not telling this story out of order. I'm not. Okay, so I have my gushing blood. They're trying to get it to stop. They get the butt doctor there. And she does a rectal exam, and they're like, there's a mass in your colon. They're like, it could just be a polyp, which it probably is just a polyp, but we have to obviously look into it and see what it is. I'm like, okay. So they look into it, and it's a cancerous malignant tumor. So the doctor there immediately sends me into surgery again. They remove the malignant mass from my colon. It had made its way to 2 of my lymph nodes, but no other organs that they could see. So they remove it, and that's the resection of my colon, which really didn't have any effect. It's the same as it always was. Then after that surgery, I'm like, now I have severe PTSD about hospitals and everything. My mind's all fucked up, and so is Kelly's. So after that surgery, my stomach starts blowing up like people that drink beer that have that barrel stomach. That's what I was getting, and I was starting to get winded again where I couldn't walk, and so they decided to do a procedure where they can pull the fluid out of your stomach. They use one of those machines they use on pregnant women, and they find a pocket where they can stick the machine so it doesn't hit any organs, and then they pull the fluid out. So all that fluid goes down, and you have a regular stomach again, and it's not all that pressure on your organs. So I'm like, okay, now this is the next step. So that's the next step. My wife might be home. Or my dogs just bark all the time. I have 2 of them. I love them. But, so he pulls out something, I forget, 16 ounces, 16 milliliters, I forget. But it was a lot. It was a big ass jar. And I immediately felt better. Like I could move, the pressure was off. So they put me in a room after that, and I'm with my now wife, then girlfriend, Kelly, and the nurse comes in, he's like, the kitchen's closed, but I have this food the other patient, hold on. Ava, be quiet, baby. The other patient didn't eat if you want to eat it. And it's like a plate of like old roast beef or something. I'm like, nah, I think I'm good on that. So me and Kelly are super happy that it worked, and I should be good. I mean, I have cancer, but my heart should be good, and I can walk and breathe again. And we're just talking happy, and we're so happy we started dancing to no music, just dancing in the room. And then it gets late, so Kelly has to leave. And the next thing I remember, I'm in the ICU again. And apparently I got up and went to use the bathroom, but they had taken too much fluid out of me, which dropped my potassium too low. And I had a cardiac incident, fell and hit my head, and that's what this scar is from. But I hit my head on something hard and landed flat on my face and was bleeding all over the place. And I would have died from the cardiac incident and just falling and the head injury. But luckily, a nurse just happened to be standing outside my door when it happened, and she heard me, and she looked in and saw, and she got a doctor immediately, and he started doing chest compressions and, shocked me and brought me back, or I would have been gone. If it wasn't for that nurse standing there, I would be gone. There's so many, like things that if it wasn't for this, I'd be gone. So that happens, and they put me in the ICU, and they decide what they want to do is put some kind of tube, I don't know. I'm not a doctor, but it goes down through your chest into your heart, and I think it's meant to keep your heart beating at a normal rhythm and keep you from having incidents. So we do that, and I'm back in the ICU. Kelly's sitting next to me. My family's in the waiting room. And they bring me lunch finally, so I finally get to eat. And I'm just eating. And my cardiologist just happened to swing by, and he's like, "Man, you got the worst luck in the world." And I'm kind of friends with him. So I was like, "Yeah, I really do." And we were all talking, all three of us, talking about what's the plan, what's next. And I'm eating, I think it was mashed potatoes. And I don't know what happened. I just remember eating mashed potatoes. And then when I was a kid, I went to Chincoteague, where there's the only wild horses that run in packs in the United States. And you can watch them, and we watched them. But when I went black, that's what I saw. Those wild horses running. And I wake up, and I was like, oh, I must have fell asleep there for a second. And my cardiologist, Dr. Alderfer, was like, if that's what you want to call it. Apparently, I went into cardiac arrest. And if he wasn't there, I'd be dead. He immediately caught it, jumped on top of me, started doing chest compressions. He's like, "Get the cart," and the nurse was like meandering around. He's like, "Get the fucking cart right now!" And he brought me back. He saved me. And Kelly's sitting there, and she saw this whole thing, me going to cardiac arrest. Him barely saving me. And he brought me back, but nothing's good about this, and that put Kelly into crazy PTSD. She'll never get over it. I'll never get over everything I've been through. She'll never get over her PTSD. So he saved me that time, and they take that tube, whatever, that went in my heart out, because it happened right after that, and they're like, "We're not messing with this." And upon further testing, they're like, "Your heart is that valve they put in through your leg in California, it's been crushed. it got crushed and it's not working barely at all. So you're in heart failure again. So I'm like, there's got to be an end to this at some point. But they said we can't. There's nothing we can do here for you. We can't do it. But we can medevac you to the University of Penn, where that Dr. Acker is. And he's really your only chance right now. So we go to Penn, and my stomach blew up again. It's called ascites, when your heart can't pump properly, and just fluids. My stomach was all blown up. My legs and ankles were all blown up. And they put me on torsemide, which, flushes fluid from your body. I forgot what the name for it is. There was a name for it. So they're doing little things, keeping me alive, keeping me comfortable as possible. But then finally the doctor comes in and he's like, yeah, your only option is open heart surgery, and it's going to be extremely dangerous and very complicated. Nothing like this has ever been done before. You are as unique a case as there is. And after this, if everything works, you will be, have the most unique heart that's ever existed. So, we didn't expect that, because we were told that we were told different at the other hospital. So my mom is like, how is this possible? She starts crying, like, not again. And Kelly's squeezing my hand. And, I'm almost just going into shock. Because not again. Not again. It's too much. This is all too much. But, once I got it in my head, this is what I had to do. I just soldiered up with the help of Kelly and my family. And it took a while to get into this surgery. Not for the reasons the last time. I wasn't on blood thinners or anything. But this time we had time, which is probably one of the other things, once again, that saved my life. We had time, but Dr. Acker is a genius. And he had time to map out the whole surgery. We did all echoes. He did, I can't remember what procedures are called, but they stick a tube down your mouth and it runs down by your heart and they get a super good look at your heart. So he could do all that and see every inch in space in my heart and see exactly what's wrong with everything. So he's able to map it out. And so he comes in and talks to me after a couple of weeks. He says, it's probably like 80-20. And that I'm happy with that. And he's like, that's a super dangerous procedure. 80-20 is not good. And I was like, no, I'll take 80-20, doc. He's like, okay. So the day comes, I cry, hold my wife's hand. She cries. I tell her I'm not leaving her. I'm coming back. I'm coming back to her and the pups. So it's a long procedure, like 8 hours. I don't remember any of it, but Kelly's out there the whole time worrying, taking anxiety pills, and she should have taken a whole bottle. She's been through so much. I feel so bad with what my body has put her through. I wish I could make it different. But, I came out of it. They had to shock me several times out of cardiac arrest. But my heart started beating. There were a lot of details in there after that, I had a breathing tube in and all that, and take the breathing tube out. You can only eat liquids. My heart's an AFib, which they can't shock it out of, which is just a regular beat, which puts pressure on your heart, which isn't good. And they shocked me like 3 different times to try to get me out of it, but they couldn't. So they're like, some people just live with it. It'll lower your life expectations, but that's just what it is. You know, you're alive. You made it. Because I'm a fucking warrior. I'm the ultimate warrior. And one day I just came out of AFib. My wife was watching all the monitors constantly. She's awesome. And she's like, it looks normal. Your heartbeats look normal. And I was like, no, don't get my hopes up. And she's like, no, really, it looks normal. And the nurse comes in, and I was like, am I out of AFib? And she's like, yeah, you have a normal beat right now. Doctors come in, and they're like, wow, how did that happen? You just came out naturally? And we're hoping I wouldn't go back into it, and I didn't. I stayed out of AFib, my normal heartbeat. And then the last thing was they didn't want to put a pacemaker in me because it was too dangerous where that pacemaker sits with the heart I have. But in my side here, they cut it open and put a defibrillator in there. And I have a box that reads that defibrillator that sends information to my doctor. But if I ever have a heart incident, if I ever, God forbid, go into cardiac arrest, it'll shock me back automatically. And so that was the last procedure I had there. I was there for months and months. Missed the whole summer pretty much. I was buying football cards online to keep me sane. Oh, and one morning I was just sitting there watching YouTube videos, and I blacked out. And I woke up with everybody standing around me, all the nurses. Dr. Acker was there. And I went into cardiac arrest again. And that was before they put the defibrillator in. And Kelly's driving on the fucking 76, which is like the worst road in Philadelphia. And she's texting me like, you want food or not? If you don't answer, you're not getting any. So, not knowing. And she gets a call that I'm in cardiac arrest, and she goes into super panic mode, PTSD, I feel so bad for her. But, they got me out of that and took me back down to the cardiac ICU. And then I started acting really weird. I had a fever, and 2 of the doctors were arguing outside. They're like, we need to get him on antibiotics right now. I know his history. I know this guy. And the other lady was like, I think we can wait. It's safe. But that guy probably saved my life. But anyway, they do the test where they stick the tube down my throat again so they can get a good look at my heart. And what it is I have a blood clotting the new mechanical valve that's in there. So they have to go in, open heart surgery again, crack my chest again, do that all over so I can get that blood clot out. And I don't know, it's just successful. I don't know. It's crazy. I woke up with a breathing tube in again, a ventilator, And I think this was before they had put the defibrillator in. I get things out of order. My short-term memories sucks because of this. So, it's months and months, but I finally recover walking around. I can do walking miles a day in the hallway, doing it all. I finally get discharged, and I'm doing good. I get put on Keytruda for the cancer, which is an awesome drug made by Merck. It's like their flagship. Happy about that. And I'm just, sitting at home playing the new God of War, Ragnarok, and that's fun. And it's better than being in a hospital. And then one day, I open my eyes, and a lady's like, do you know what happened? Do you know where you are? since I had to be on blood thinners for my mechanical valve, it thins your blood, obviously, and makes bleeding worse. Apparently, I was home alone and hit my head on something that I don't remember. And my brain started bleeding. And I was apparently talking to Kelly during this time, like trying to talk her out of taking me to the hospital because I just didn't want to go. But, it got bad enough where I couldn't walk. I was stumbling around, falling over. She made me go. She had to drag me, get people to help bring me into the hospital. And they take a look at things and they're like, his brain is bleeding. It's swelling. It's off center. So they have to do emergency surgery on my brain now. So they do surgery, get the bleeding to stop, get the swelling to stop for the time. But the next day it comes back and it's swelling and they're like, it can't keep swelling like this. So they had to take this whole piece of my skull off to relieve it. And then they swabbed the inside of my skull and it swabbed positive for MRSA. But they swabbed it 1,000 more times after that and it swabbed negative. So they said it's definitely environmental MRSA, which means it was in the room and it got on my skull from the room. I didn't have MRSA. And so they take this piece off and, I have to get fitted for a helmet that I wear all the time after making sure it wasn't swelling or bleeding. I'd be super careful. I went through 2 rounds of physical therapy, inpatient and outpatient, and finally got home, finally doing good. And then one Saturday, me and Kelly were playing video games, and I'm like, I have these soft patches on my head, and my eyes started swelling up. So I called my brain surgeon the next day and showed him pictures, sent him pictures, and he's like, go to the hospital right now. So I go to the hospital, and they look preliminarily, and there's some kind of fluid right here that built up, and they thought it was just on the outside. And they're like, oh, we can take you in the OR and drain that. But it had gotten to below that skull piece, and it was infection. And they didn't know if it infected my brain or not. It had not. But they had to take off this skull piece again. Take it off. The one they just put on, so they could get all that infection out of there and clean it real good. And they do that, and they can't put it right back on because the risk of it getting infected again is too high. So they put me on heavy antibiotics. I'm there for weeks. They have to get my blood levels at the right level, so it's not too thin or not too thick, because they don't want it too thick to clog my heart. They don't want it too thin so my brain starts bleeding. It's just a rock in a hard place, They finally get it to the level they think is semi-acceptable. And they send me home with a PICC line, which is a line that goes right above your heart. And then you put in antibiotics at home with it. So I have a at-home nurse that comes and shows me how to do it. I do it myself 3 times a day. And eventually I did that for, 3 weeks. Eventually she came and pulled it, and that's the bandage from them pulling of PICC line. But they said from the time I left the hospital, which was like a month ago, it's 6 months until they can put this skull piece back on. So I have to wear my helmet. for 6 months. And then I had long hair below like to my shoulders, like nice blonde hair before all this happened. But it starts growing out again, and then they have to shave it to do something. So in 6 months, this right side of my head, my right side, is going to get shaved again so they can put it back on. And one of the surgeons that had worked there forever, he's a longest tenured surgeon, said he's seen people that needed this procedure up to 6 times because they keep getting reinfected. So I have to be super careful after this one because I can't do it again. So at this point, my heart's working well. My brain works. My short-term memory is not great, but it's good. I'm good. Everything's good with that. Everything's as good as it's been for years and years and years. And me, I forgot to tell you, me and Kelly got married. I don't have my ring on right now because I was washing dishes and I didn't want it to fall off. But I have a beautiful platinum ring, and she has a ring that has diamonds from my grandmother's wedding ring. And I designed what she wanted. She told me what she wanted, and I drew it out. And they made her that ring. It has my grandmother's diamonds on the outside, and then a new big diamond in the middle. It's beautiful. And I have the best wife in the world. And anytime anything happens, she's there every day by my side. I wouldn't be alive right now without her. Like, literally, for many reasons. Physical reasons and mental reasons. We danced a lot in the hospital. That became our thing. Dancing in a hurricane. And now I am the ultimate warrior. I am. Be here now is like my mantra. It's like live in the moment, live in the day. I have it. Where is it? I stuck with this. Be here now. I have it tattooed on my arm. I had it written on my helmet. I keep it in my head when I start to get depressed. Kelly will say it to me. Kelly will also say, not today. That's another mantra. Like, not today. Nothing bad's going to happen today. Not to us. We got through all this. So right now, that's currently where I'm at. The PICC line's out of my arm. I got to get in touch with infectious disease doctors to see if they want me to take oral antibiotics. I just saw my brain surgeon. He said everything looks great with the stitches. They took the stitches out and all that. He said it all looks great. It's all scabbed over and looks good. So that's great. And I'm healthy. I mean, I jogged 1.5 miles. So my heart is great. And it's just, now I'm going to beat this fucking cancer, because fuck cancer. Every 3 weeks I get treated for cancer. There's not much side effects with Keytruda. And luckily, if I had to be on chemo and do this brain stuff, I don't know how that would work, but am I getting a lazy eye? Oh, man. Anyway, that is my health story. And I'm sure if my wife was here and we were doing this together, she'd be corrected a lot of things, like out of order. And that is how I remember it today after 2 brain surgeries. So give me a little break if it's not perfect. Oh, Eris. Hey, baby Eris. Eris. Eris, pup. There's baby Eris, pup. There she is. She doesn't want to look at the camera because she's on daddy's lap. I don't blame her. I like sleep too. So that's my health story. There's several times where I really should have been dead. But I pulled through. And I don't say I'm here for a reason. I say I'm here because of great doctors and great support, and I won't stop fighting. That's why I'm here. God isn't putting me here. God wasn't in that operating room. Dr. Acker and Dr. Wu were. God wasn't in that cardiac ICU room every day, bringing me drinks and snacks and, atomic warheads. That was Kelly and my family. That's why I'm here. That is why I'm here, and that's why I'm not going anywhere. That's why when I get down, I just think of Kelly and the dogs, and I'm not going anywhere. They need me. And after all they've done for me, especially Kelly, the dog, Earth did come see me in the hospital the one day. She was confused about everything, but she sat in my lap and kissed me. And so that's my story. I hope maybe if it inspires somebody that's going through maybe heart surgery, brain surgery, cancer, you got it. You're going to beat it. You're a strong person. I'm nobody special. I beat all this shit. I'm nobody special. You got it. I'm with you. I got your back. You got it. And I love all you guys. Seriously. Anybody that's sick, I send out love to you and good vibes. And I hope it's the best for you. I wish only the best for you. Don't take anything for granted. Enjoy every day. Enjoy your family. Go outside in the sun. The sun feels great. If I could only give you one piece of advice for the future, sunscreen would be it. I love you guys. See you later.